All right, welcome to our meeting today. We're going to do our roll call of members here. So let me find my list. And so, well, I guess before we do that, this was a question that came up because right now we currently don't have a secretary. And to do the roll call and capture that information. And Joe, is this I'm assuming right now is a good place.
Yeah, we need a secretary to take notes. Very helpful.
Yes, so just ask for any nominations of anybody that would like to step into that role.
Yeah.
Good. We have some other members that might want to be a secretary too, as they are joining.
Good. How are y'all?
Good.
Just getting started, and we're asking for a secretary who can help take notes for us.
Somebody volunteered.
Not yet.
Are you Jennifer that volunteered?
I will.
Oh,
I
thank you.
Just let you know if you sit there, you're back from being in the camera.
Or I can move over to the chair. I need to.
I want you to be comfortable, but I didn't want you thinking you're back.
Before we get going, small housekeeping request from Miss Loretta, our wonderful admin. If you did not do your voucher, but you want mileage, you have to have a vendor number. We can talk about that if you want to do that. And then I have filled out vouchers for Susan. I think you just sign them. Take everything, make sure everything's okay. And sign them. Oh, it's good.
And then Andrea would just ask for a nomination of a secretary to take notes too, so we're waiting on that.
You have a nomination for a secretary. Who wants to take notes today?
I said I would.
You would? Yeah. Jennifer's got it.
I have a pen. I wasn't sure about my computer, but.
Jennifer has agreed to take notes.
Why don't we do one?
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, that'd be great. Good. I need to move right.
We'll be able to read my writing.
And would this, for Jennifer taking this, I had printed out this, would this be an easy thing to give to Jennifer, like marking off roll call and all of that?
Yes, very much so, yeah. Did you have an extra copy? This is the notes form.
Making sure I've got everybody's name down.
You're welcome. Thanks, Misty.
Did you get one, Jennifer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Misty, do you need that copy?
Jennifer, are you good? We were going to start roll call. Are you good, or do you need a minute? Okay, I don't want to rush it. Okay, fine. Okay, perfect. So we will start with the roll call. So just mark or say your attendance when you hear your name. So Whitney Stevenson, present. Embry, present. Whitney Fowler, present. Christy,
Present.
Carlina, Jennifer,
Present.
Ashla,
Present.
Chris,
Present.
Kim,
Present.
and Susan. Present. So,
Amy Neal, is that one? Okay.
okay, so we have our roll call, so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Williams to have our welcomes.
All right. So thank you, Dr. Stevenson, and good morning to everyone. It's so good to be in community with you today. It seems like it's been a while since we've come together, but I'm happy that we're here right before we entered the school year. So we're very happy to be here today to dialogue and conversation to kind of see what KDE can do to again support our preschool programs throughout Kentucky. So again, we look forward to the conversation, the dialogue, and we hope we have a great meeting. So again, thank you all for coming, and I'm ready to jump into the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. So now I'm going to turn it over to Christy Lewis to share the purpose and review our norms.
Good morning, everybody. So our purpose and our norms, let me get over at the top of our agenda. The Preschool Advisory Group was created to advise the Office of Special Education and Early Learning on unmet needs and issues relevant to state-funded preschool. The PCAG consists of 10 members who represent each region across the state. The members of this group are actively engaged within the work of the state-funded preschool. These members provide valuable feedback and suggestions on critical issues that align with OSIL priorities, and this feedback is used to help shape the guidance and support being provided by the OSIL staff. And then our meeting norms is that our members must keep their cameras on. Members must speak when called on for roll call or any voting. The meeting is being recorded. Reminder to stay focused on the topic agenda at hand for the sake of time and the hybrid environment. Raise hand and in the chat for questions. Additional feedback is provided through the meeting exit slip, and the secretary is taking notes, and Joe McCowan stores and manages the documents. So those are our purpose and meeting norms. Thank you for allowing me to be virtually today. Besides just some health things going on, I appreciate the availability to be virtual. So thank you all. I appreciate that accommodation.
Thank you, Christy. And I have a quick question for Joe. So Jennifer has volunteered to do our minutes today. And that, do we need to have a formal vote on a secretary?
Yes, if you're willing to serve as the secretary, then you just have a vote on that.
Okay, so just take a vote. So a vote, the motion would be for Jennifer Walrod to be our secretary for the preschool advisory.
You can just say, everyone in favor, say aye. Any nays?
Okay.
Nay. Any discussion?
Okay. All right. Everybody in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that motion passes. I believe there's 10 of us, 10-0, is that correct? Here today? Oh, there's not 10 here today.
That's great.
There's 9 here today, yes, Charlene is not here. All right, perfect, thank you. And then I do have a question about that where it says all members vote with what's coming up. Can I just do that consensus, or do I need to go down the list to get
You can do the consensus like that.
consensus? Okay,
Unless you feel like it's a very contentious item, then you
Okay.
probably want to go.
okay, all right.
You just kind of feel for that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So our next item on the agenda is review and approval of the October 27th, 2022 meeting minutes. So when Dr. Williams said it'd been a while since we've met, it has been a while since we met. So a copy of the minutes were provided when you came in. So if you haven't, just take a second to look over those, and then we will ask for approval. If everybody is good, I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes from October 27th, 2022 PCAG meeting. Have a second?
A second.
Is there any discussion? So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that's 9-0, as approved 9-0. The next item on our agenda is the preschool quality discussion. And I think for those that have been on here since the beginning, knowing that we are not using the ECHRs again and looking at or anymore, and then looking at the quality, that was something that's always been an initial conversation that we've had. And I know that KDE has looked into tools and is looking at the tools, and folks have sent me some samples. But I think that, we're not there right now, or, we're not sure what that instrument's going to be or what the rollout is going to be. But I do think that we can never lose sight of what the quality is in our program. Whether there is something right now that is not approved, that it's our responsibility as coordinators and any coordinator across the state to ensure that that quality is happening within our state kind of preschool programs. So with that, just looking, there's just a couple of questions, to consider that for us to have discussion. But one is, currently, what are you doing in your state-funded preschool program to monitor quality? And then, how do you ensure quality is happening? So just thinking about those questions, I'm thinking about your own programs and maybe, that your, colleagues in your RTC area that have shared in various meetings what they're doing, just to have a discussion, just so that people know that conversation is always in the forefront of what we're doing in state funded. We have to have quality programs for our young students. So does anybody have anything that they would like to start with or open with or share?
One of the things that we're doing as far as safe sign goes, we're going through the, with for targeted for the pyramid model. It does have a lot of those good teaching skills. Not so much about the environment, about the items in the room, but more along the lines of quality teaching aspects that you look for. We also still use the very old, basically the self-study model that KDE came up with years ago. So we you bounce off those two items.
The old, from, was it P2R or stuff?
No, it's the.
Oh.
Yeah. The ancient one. It's the ancient book.
And it still works, right?
Thank you for sharing.
Christy Lewis.
I'm happy to share. Just like you were sharing, we have really invested time into the pyramid model and have really valued the teapot as the tool of looking at the quality of the interactions between teachers and staff. They have truly valued the feedback they've received from coaching around the teapot and the pyramid model. We see that it has truly supported ongoing communication. It has allowed teachers to have ownership into their classroom as well. And then we've used the Eckers as a checklist. We've used that Eckers checklist that we have as a self-reflection tool for the teachers and teaching assistant to utilize best practices to ensure that we have quality. But it's not something that is being used per se that, the RTC is not coming in to do that piece. We're using it as a self-reflection. That's also been a great tool for our staff to come to the table and say, hey, what do you have? What can we, support each other with? It's brought with leadership within our program as well. And then, of course, since we're a fully blended program, we're still doing class. And so pairing class with the teapot and Eckers, those tools have really supported our, we know that we're still that 5-star center that we were given so many moons ago, but I can't speak highly enough of the support we've been given through our RTCs around the teapot. And I mean, that's just been invaluable, and I see as a strong measure moving forward for us as well.
Go ahead, Kim.
We have 4 preschool classrooms now and a tuition-based program. So we, of course, have had so much support with RTC and have been involved in the pyramid model and the teapot for a couple of years with that support and have a social emotional coach. The things that I was afraid would get lost is, because I'm the special ed director for the whole school system, I see that, reading reading scores are down statewide, reading literacy scores are down nationwide, really. So I have ordered Wilson Reading for this year, the preschool version, because it's scripted. Because some of my math people didn't get, they weren't teachers when we did the Eckers, and they really, struggle a little bit with the literacy part. And I want to look at it, and we're going to play with it this year. And I don't want it to be drill and kill or anything like that. And I don't think it will be. But I do want them to have a little extra guidance as like a scripted program to get kids ready. But, of course, I don't want kids to hate school either. So I want them preschoolers to be excited, love school, and be ready to learn when they hit kindergarten. But I just thought we needed a little something more because I didn't want to lose and creative curriculum too. I've ordered more materials for that because with the pandemic, everything changed, and including our staff. We have new staff, so trying to make sure we don't forget the literacy portion in all this.
Thank you, Kim. And I think when you're talking about the scripted reading, I think that is a fine line for us in early childhood.
It is.
Because we know what research tells us, especially, for the students that we serve, that in literacy, scripted direct instruction does have a big impact on students. But I think that that's a fine line for us as advocates to make sure that in our districts that the dosage is what we have to follow,
Right.
If it's, 15 minutes a day or this, because I think some people that don't necessarily have the lens that we all have think, oh, well, if you're doing this long, then do an hour. And then kids are going to grow, and that. So I know that that's like, that's a fine line, because I think,
It is.
looking at, our AEPS scores as a district, and I think all of us know too, coming out of the pandemic and where children are, where there's, we're seeing bigger gaps in some of those skills that children, were coming to school with preschool with.
Right.
So no, I get that and understand that. I just think for us, like that's an ongoing conversation that we have. Yes.
We're playing with it. We're going to play with it this year. Now, one thing I increased was a lot of field trips because they need a lot of background knowledge. And a lot of the kids that we serve have not had the background knowledge that my children or your all's children have had access to. So all of it, a big combination. I just want it to be a really big, happy learning place that hopefully give them as many of the same opportunities that my own children have had.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I feel like that right now, everything that's been mentioned, it's all been put in a pot and people's just been pulling out the parts that they like. And I'm guilty of that. The creative curriculum and heck release, we've done both, or I am both of those. And then the stars, just making sure the program is, so I don't know if that's a good thing or if we need to focus more on one. Yeah, I guess it just depends on the class and the students. So.
And I think that's where KDE has come, like we're looking at that, because I think everybody recognizes there has to be some consistency in what we do just as a state program. But I think the moving parts that people have in their districts as additional pieces, but I think right now these things are what we're doing. Like nobody's not looking for quality. Like that's what the conversation is that it's the forefront. But I do think that consistency coming from the guidance of KDE about what that's going to look like will be soon.
Yeah, so you bring up a really good point, Dr. Stevenson, is that you all know that we were, through the Governor's Office of Early Childhood and a Preschool Development Grant, we were awarded funds to support quality for 3 years. And so we are looking for, as Dr. Stevenson said, to provide consistency throughout the state. And so as a team, we're looking at that, and we're going to bring like recommendations to you all to kind of get your ideas around what that may look like. But just again, we do have programs to support quality. So we're very excited about that. And then we're able to really look into quality and provide consistency throughout the state around the tool.
Thank you for that. Anybody else?
I'm sorry, go ahead. We're just,
One thing I would say about bringing another instrument of quality is we don't want to, overburden our teachers.
Absolutely.
If there's something we're already currently using or looking to use, that would work in this aspect, I think I would rather see us move that direction.
Absolutely. Yeah.
that we're just really looking to make sure that parts of the ECRs that were important, like scheduling, and that they're still getting that outside time. They're still getting that hour of center time. We're ensuring that those schedules are still being met, and that's not taken away from the kids. We also, I can't remember because it's all kind of a blur with COVID, but we implemented half of one of those years, the Waterford learning in the classrooms. And so we got to do that on a trial basis, which that's what they do
in the elementary setting. And so we saw a significant impact of that program also on our kids in the preschool program. Waterford. And we don't, we're in the technological world now, and we know that with Eckers, you couldn't spend that much time with the technology, which we never did. But this is something that the kids can get on and do it in 7 minutes and then they're done, but it's done consistently every day, so.
I think that speaks in what you said. It's still 7 minutes a day, because I think it goes back to that reading too, is that we are in that technology-based world, but we still know that children learn and the brains develop through those things. But having something with a dosage that's appropriate and still fits in with what those guidelines are. Because again, I think that there's an assumption out there, we'll put them on the computer for an hour, they're going to grow this much, and that's not. These programs are scripted and have a purpose, and using what the guidance is for that is what we do. And so I think sometimes those, I've had those conversations with folks in our district as we've looked at programs and things. Well, if we did this for this much longer, and I'm like, the dose, this is what we follow is the guidelines.
And I'll tell you where we register kids all throughout the summer, and I didn't have the family guides when we first did our screenings in May and April when we did our registration, but the parents love those. I mean, and they're like, oh, it's giving me ideas, because that's what how do I do this? I'm like, this thing is amazing. And so I've been passing those things out like crazy. And we've also taken a box of them to the hospital to let the physicians pass those out to early new moms and stuff, so.
We're going to use the family guides this year to do specific trainings and have materials so that we can show them how to do some of those activities, one-on-one, especially with some of our lower SES families and our ESL families.
Ms. Lewis, I have a question for you, Christy. So my question is that you mentioned earlier around, the blended classrooms and having two tools, class and also using Teapot. How has your teachers been able to do that? Does it seem like it's enough to do, or how have you been able to facilitate those two tools within your program?
So, Dr. Thomas, one of the things I think is important on my side is that I communicate the why behind the tools. So we created a graphic that shares how all of this falls into a funnel and is a piece of the puzzle. So communicating on the front side that we use class because it's a Head Start requirement, but we use the Teapot because it helps support the teachers as we share that information out. I think it's been important to communicate the why behind that so that they have the buy-in. They were able to see the growth. They were in charge of their planning, and we just use it for coaching and mentoring. And in my mind, as long as we have communicated things effectively, there's always going to be oh my gosh, it's one more thing. But it's how that one more thing is communicated that supports and strengthens the quality overall. So it's not like, hey, you're coming in and having your class. It is, what does that look like on a form when we use the class, when we use the Teapot, and we use Eckers? We just show that they all mix together. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate you saying that. I think the why is extremely important because that shows the big picture, and I think that's very important. So that's very helpful to us as we continue to think through the consistency with the tools that we do throughout the state. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And one more piece to that is it's important for us as leaders to connect those dots for the teachers on the front end instead of making them have to do that. They've got enough on their plate. So, there's a crosswalk between class and the Teapot. So when we have those items, instead of, if they're doing well here, they're typically doing well in this area. So making sure that we're showing that and not giving them more work to do is key. Is that more work for me? Of course it is, but that's my job. So.
Thank you.
So
one thing for us that we've been doing the last few years is we require each of our teachers to have their own classroom quality improvement plan. And so again, district-wide, we're doing things and monitoring the quality, but really asking them to have their own QIP. And initially when we started it, it was like really and truly, again, we don't want this to be one more thing, but if you need to clean the clutter out of your storage closet so you can have more functionality of your room, then start with that. And so as we've done these, they have grown into things like better communication with my para. I need to have a para plan, or we need to spend more time doing this. So those have really been something. And so our the program specialists that we have in the district, they monitor those. They're assigned cadres, so they monitor their cadres' quality improvement plans in December. And when I say monitor, that's when they meet with them and just say, hey, how's your QIP going? How can I support you? Is there anything that I need to do? Because it may be that they're still seeking out some professional learning as a team. Like, what can we do to support that? So that's just something that we've maintained. And again, it might be one or two. We're not asking for 10, but we're asking for, and if you want to sit down with your para and really think through what that looks like. But just something for them to keep just as a quality improvement aspect for them and that ownership of their classrooms.
I think too, with COVID and the pandemic, we lost contact with so many families, and and now it's hard to get them back. But one of the things that we're focusing on this year is that family engagement piece with the Pritchard Committee. And we're gonna really hone in on that to see how we can get these families back and making them realize that it's not just our investment, but it's their investment in their children as well.
Anybody else have anything they want to add to the quality discussion? And again, I appreciate that. I think we're in a place where things are coming, but we, as a collective whole, have kept quality in the forefront of what we're doing in our districts. And again, it may look different right now, and it may look different even after a tool comes with support, or what our support documents or tools would be. But I do think we as we recruit families and we talk about that, to talk about the quality that we have is very, very important. So the next thing on our agenda is our child outcome summary. And so I'm passing that over to Andrea to have that, to share that conversation.
First, to echo Dr. Williams, Dr. Stevenson, so good to be in person with you all today. It's been quite some time. And I wish all of us could be here together, but extenuating circumstances abound, and that's okay. We're just happy to see your faces online. Just real quick before I get into the outcomes, the quality piece, this conversation has been really great to give us some feedback from you all. I'm taking a lot from this to see what you're doing, how we can bounce off of that at a state level is very valuable. So thank you all for sharing with us as we move forward to look to use some of this PDG money to try and get some things going. So that's exciting. Child outcome summary. So this time, I really just want you guys to think and tell me your thoughts about how COS went this year. We're ended the first round, the first year of it. We had some struggles. We have updated guidance that's come out. If you look through that and read that, any feedback that you may have on that process. This will be a continually growing thing. This is not something that's going to stay stagnant based on the feedback that we get from you and from your regions as well. And this is a conversation that I'd like to continuously have because it is so new. And I've heard from some people in the field, some teachers, different things, but I'd like to get y'all's perspective on it as well. So if anybody wants to jump in, go first, or take a minute to think, and that's fine. I just want to get a little bit of feedback so I can take that back to me and my team and hopefully be able to change or, pivot some things if we need to, or to figure out how to best support.
One of the things that I wish that we had, where I had the capability to do, is run a report
of what child that didn't have their COS completed.
You can now.
Yay!
So that just came out. Like
Awesome. That way you know who,
I'm actually writing up the information to send out to you all
Uh-huh,
next
awesome.
week.
That way you know who needs help, you know, who, how can I help you with these kids?
There's a QA report in Infinite Campus. 4, it just got released with the latest Infinite Campus release. Yes, so I'm getting all that ready. And that has allowed me to see as well, kind of go through at the state level and see which districts are kind of hitting the mark and which I need to support to say, hey, maybe we need to have a conversation because it looks like you've got lots of kids missing. Because that was one of the reasons for the change, that we were missing 40% of our kids in this data. And that is not appropriate and doesn't help anybody. So that's what we want to make sure we're capturing everyone. So yes, I'm writing that information up to send out. It's going to be so exciting. It's going to be so exciting. It looks easy. It should be on the same side as like where you do preschool enrollment count. It should be there. We'll look for it. Yes, thank you. That was a long time coming for Infinite Campus people. They kept changing. Like we'd have one person and then the next week it'd be somebody else. Then we'd have to start all the way over. And we get to the end and start all the way over with somebody brand new.
So we'll be ready for this next school year, which is exciting.
Yes, yes. So that's it. Look for that coming to your inboxes soon. What else?
Having the information transfer would be really, really nice between the districts.
Yes. That is something Infinite Campus has told us we cannot do with the current form that we have. We are continuously talking with them about how to get this out of a form and into a module. Just like you have the special ed tab, have a preschool tab that would include count and COS. To me, I think that would be most helpful. And at that point, when it's in a module, it can transfer. But right now it cannot. And there's what everything is, time and money, right? So got to try and figure out ways to make that happen because I know that is an incredibly difficult thing to deal with. It's hard at the state level too. We have data from different kids coming from different places, for sure.
The only other thing that my teachers talked to me a little bit about is basically they thought like the question when you use the flow chart, it was questions are quite easy for a child to sort of score a little bit higher when in actuality, the child may not be what it sort of shows on the chart.
Under 7 chart.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we need to revise that. That was a tool that we took from one of our data partners. So maybe that's something we need to Kentuckyize for our kiddos. We can look at that for sure. I think that's something that teachers really took to heart, trying to figure out where they fit on that, maybe not thinking more holistically. I think maybe if the words were different on that page, that would lead them to think differently, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think what's confusing or difficult about that is that you're rating them 1 to 7, but 1 to 7 at age 3.0 is very different than 1 to 7 at age even 3.5. And so a child at 3.0 might be at a 6 or a 7, and then they go back down as they grow older. Or could, you know what I mean? That's hard for teachers to wrap their brains around sometimes.
Because you always want to see that growth.
Right, it's not just right. Whereas like on your assessment, once they have mastered a skill, they've mastered a skill. So it's.
A lot of times you see that on the Brigance, and when you give the 3-year-old Brigance and they score
Right.
real high, but then when they turn 4, then their score is a whole lot lower.
Right. That's something to think about though. But we need to figure out a way to kind of delineate between ages.
Because I think that's hard for parents to see,
Understand.
oh, well, wait a minute, they were at a 7 and now they're saying they're at a 1. So.
Other feedback? Chrissy's frozen.
Logging out, try to log back in.
I thought you were really processed.
I didn't too.
I'm still just about those frozen pictures. At least she looks great.
Or
Yes.
her nails look great. So for the ease of the COS process, is it an easy process for teachers? Is there still too many steps? Not enough steps?
Teachers, they pretty smoothly as far as filling it out.
That was one thing we really wanted to help, because sometimes kids was not easy to do. That was one of our main goals, was to make it easy. What are your thoughts or feedback about the kids, the population? So we have to do students with disability. You're also doing students without disability because that gives us a really robust data set. What are your thoughts about that?
This first year, we just did the kids that were income eligible and disability. That was probably a little easier on my staff because I created all the forms, I put in all the stuff for them, and I just gave them a list. Here's the kids you have to go in and put the scores in for. Because, you know, if they're gonna be accountable, I don't want them, if it's coming back with my name on it, I'm gonna make sure that it, you know, that I created it. So, I don't know, we haven't really decided, and that was a question I was gonna ask. Do you want all of them done this year?
Every eligible student should have a COS in their repertoire. Yeah. Students who are not eligible, those are over income, tuition, those are ones that a district can choose if they want to include.
And that's how we did it last year.
Because they're not part of the eligible students process. Most things that we do function that way. The new guidance, change the dates to December 1st. I think that's well received. Not having to do that November 15th to December 1st window of having to redo things. And with those.
Chrissy's back.
You like your nail color.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate all the hard work that you guys have done, and also appreciate you all being vocal advocates of this work. Change is hard and it's tough, especially when it sounds kind of big and scary. But I think having, you know, support from you all and support from the RTCs has been really important to push this message across that, yeah, it's different and it's difficult, but we're going to get better data this way. The data that I've looked at the state level is already a lot better.
When we get that, how
We will see. We're working on it. That's something that's going to take me some time. And I'm having to train up new staff on the systems as well. So hopefully we'll get you some reports from last year very soon. I want that process to be much smoother and much quicker, but that's just going to take time for capacity building.
You can run your data from ad hoc. Created, we in Davis County created a Google data studio, Davis County information. That way I could share the information with my superintendent as well as assistant superintendents.
And if you all can share that ad hocs with other districts, that's so helpful.
Mhm. We,
Yeah.
for preschool partnership grant, we have to do all kids. And the one thing that, that everybody in our district's a little bit, we're not real sure if we're doing it right or, you know, is, our tuition-based childcare that we use for kids that aren't eligible. And those kids have to be assessed because of our preschool partnership grant. But, you know, they're not the eligible kids. So what we did this past year is just assess everybody because that was easier than, so we wouldn't miss a kid that was eligible, just to make sure we just across the board assess everybody. But even in our infinite campus pools, and I didn't get any questions about it, so I think it's fine, but we have to, that's a part of that grant too, are those kids that are in our childcare, or if you partner, I think with an outside childcare, they have to be in the infinite campus.
Yeah.
But
That's
we've done
part
it
of
non-enrolled as an in enrollment, and then do their assessments in there.
And Andrea, it's even a good idea if you share how to build some of those ad hoc reports with the RTCs, and they can share at their meetings with the districts in that region, just to let them know, because some districts are more tech savvy than others and building those ad hocs. And so it's just nice to be able to share how to do that. Take some pressure off you and speeds things up for them.
Yes, the ad hocs are nice for sure, and they work great. Thank you, Kim, for that. Yeah, the preschool partnership agreements, if you have those have different requirements that you have to follow as far as this. And I think that's a note for us to check in with the partnership grant folks and make sure that they're getting what they need.
I will say, my child care center, 3,000 of their grant, we wrote in, because we had to increase what we paid them. And we couldn't increase their hourly wage on our hourly wage because the sustainability after this money's gone. Well, I sort of, was fantasizing, I guess, and thought that there would be more money because it's such a, a huge deal about having childcare to keep everybody working. But 3,000 of their stipend fell off on June 30th. And we've already had people that said that they were going to quit now. They haven't quit yet. I haven't got any letters, but if you all have any way to advocate for more money for childcare workers, be continued stipends, that would be great, because even my director of childcare has said that she's not going to be able to stay at this job if she loses. We have another 5,000 that she will get for the next year. But after that, that's 8,000 gone that we had been paying them. And, it was 8,000 that more than what they're used to. But usually when people get used to making some more money, they get some more bills. And now we're getting ready to hit a big old wall of people quitting. Yeah.
And the last round of these grants came out of the Division of Child Care, so that's something that we can definitely.
Keeps everything going.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good grant, for sure.
Yes, it's been wonderful.
For me, for the COS, like, we lived it, we did it, and now I'm like, I don't even want to go back and think about, like, you know what I mean? Like, all my notes, and I'm like, I'm scared. But I know some of the things that you addressed are things that come up. But for you guys, because we hadn't met since last October, and I know that you all got feedback, was it like, did you get feedback in real time from coordinators just continually? So, okay.
My phone was busy.
Because I was gonna say there's changes, and I know you got feedback, but I hope that, it was a representative of,
I think so.
like, everybody good.
I think that's something that as we move forward with our conversations today, we can talk a little bit about ways that we can spread kind of the messages and this information through our RTC regions. And this is one to bring back stuff to the table and say, well, half of my region partners are mad because of X, Y, Z. Definitely giving us some feedback as we move to the second year of the COS. Looking forward to seeing how things can change a little bit more. A little bit better every year.
Called or texted you at some point, and then I was like, we got through it, we got it done.
We got through it, it was done, right? Absolutely.
We're good. Yes.
Everyone survived. There, just real quick, so you guys can share, and that the data or the new guidance is online. There's a video on there. So I have a voice, and I'm sorry about that. But I hope I don't too much in there. But there's that video, and then there's also stuff on ECTA website that's linked on our website. Just those resources for your new teachers. I know some of our RTCs are doing specific COS new teacher trainings. My Anderson's doing one soon for new teachers specifically. Keeping those resources out there as you guys come back into the buildings and get those PDs going.
Thank you. So we're a little ahead of schedule, and we have the DMS 2.0, and so Melinda Cooper is going to join us instead of Linda Funky today. And so Melody Cooper is the policy advisor for OSIL. So you are.
All right. And so I don't know if you all have gotten it. I guess probably not. If you haven't met since October, probably haven't got anything about this. So we're just going to go over a really high level, what is DMS 2.0? And so basically, I think that for you all, it's like the KDE's getting monitored now. But what DMS 2.0 is they have the Office of Special Education Programs, OSEP, under the U.S. Department of Education has renamed their monitoring. And so DMS stands for, make sure I get it right, Differentiated Monitoring and Support of States Programs. And so it is happening in 3 phases. So they're going to focus both on compliance and results. And it consists of, much like we do monitoring in the districts, this will consist of on-site components and off-site components as well. And it's going to be completed in 3 phases. So we are currently in phase 1, which is the discovery phase, and that's going to go through November. So it's just, they're requesting documents, looking at websites, things like that. So, much like a desk review type of thing, that's the phase that we're in right now. It's called discovery. And the next phase will be the engagement. So when some of the OSEP staff are on site here, and we're having that the week of November 5th. So that'll be engagement. And then the final phase is closeout and follow-up. And according to what we've heard so far, that would be 1 year following. We would get the report 1 year after, within 1 year after the engagement in November, and then follow up after that, whatever would occur from that closeout phase. So I know our Part C friends have already finished up there, so they're in the closeout and follow up. They finished their engagement piece, and so we're learning a few lessons from them. And I believe you sat in on some of that, didn't you, Andrea? So, yep, that's the high level overview of DMS 2.0.
I think we bring that to this group because as a advisory group, one, you should be aware of what's happening. And also, there's a potential that you may be interviewed by OSEP. There's a potential for that. We don't know if they're not. I sat in with Part C on some partner engagement. There were some advisory groups that I sit on there, and they brought them together. That was good. It really was a great conversation. People. So that's kind of give you guys a heads up. And we've been talking about it a little bit in our preschool coordinator meetings as well, because they could want to visit a preschool program on site. We don't know what they're going to want to do once they get here.
So that would be starting in November,
Yeah.
correct? Okay, that means that.
Yeah, November 5th through 9th is our engagement week.
Okay.
It would always be our intention, as much as we could as possible, is to give you guys heads up, but that's not necessarily in our control. It does feel very, very much like, it does feel very much like that.
Any questions? What was the differentiated monitoring?
Differentiated monitoring and support of states programs. And they do, you can look it up on OSEP's website. There's more in-depth information about it if you just search in the OSEP site. So
I think this is, having that and having this background, when we do present out at our RTCs or give updates that, we're able to share and then share where to find more information about what that is. So great. Thank you very much. Sure. Okay, so the next thing on our agenda is a review of our priorities. And so if you have been on here for a while, we have gone back and forth. We I think got our legs under us by getting, things established, our minutes, or, our agendas, our processes. We got a new secretary, so that's a good, we've got some good things. So we got some good things going, and during all of that, we were talking about priorities and what that would look like, and we've gone back and forth and had some really great conversations. And so in our minutes from October, our priorities are listed in there from what we had talked about before and just discussions. They're on the last page, the number 1 to 3. But I think, part of the gap of us not meeting, we did have some conversations, and I say Chrissy and I met, with Katie about what's the future of this. What does this look like? Are we not meeting anymore? Because, and Christy and I will say, we share the sentiment that I feel like this is a good thing for state-funded preschool. I think it shows that there's, collaboration across the state, that there's partnership, that we have a place at the table with all other departments, and, everything tied to KDE preschool is important in that role. But I do think and when we look back at some of the priorities, maybe there's some things, though, that we don't necessarily have control over, but we could advocate for. Does that make sense? So I think that we really have to look at that lens of what is it that we could advocate for, but really, when it's time for us to rotate off of this group, what are those end products that we can say, actually, a product that we did, that we were part of, that has improved the quality, improved what we do in state-funded preschool. And that we set the path for whomever comes after us, that, please take the reins, but the expectation is that you're making some great changes for our program across the entire state. So in that, and looking through what we have here, and we had teacher caseload, communications between first steps, and then the preschool teacher frustration. So when we look at teacher caseload, we know that's regulatory. And that, again, I think that's definitely an advocacy piece. We all know that is something, I think I had shared at previous meetings, that those are things that I'm taking to our board as a district to look at. But at the state level, that's regulatory. And again, I think as that, if that were to bubble up or we were able to have a place, I think that absolutely we could have a voice in that. But I think that's hard at this time to have a short range goal or product of that, because that's going to take some time.
And I think you bring up a really valid point, is that, as you look at your priorities, kind of look at the short-term and long-term priorities, because some things can possibly happen more swift or quicker than other things, right? So caseloads, for example, there will be it's not a quick fix, right? So that's a, regulatory possible change. So kind of as you're looking at your priorities, kind of look at it in like, what is an immediate, and then what is something that, we want to do, but it may take a little longer to fulfill. But we're definitely, as Dr. Stevens said, your voices are critical because it informs KDE on how we need to better support you all. So, but I encourage you to kind of look at the short term and the long term priorities as you're looking at them.
Thank you. So the second one is methods to improve communication between first steps and local education agencies. And again, I think that this is a conversation that we've had since we've started, and I think it's something that impacts everybody across the state. But I'm not sure that at a state level, at this group level, that we could put processes in place, because what happens in Fayette County would be different what happened in your county. I think the underlying piece of that is getting everybody at the table, and in some of those are tough conversations, and in others, it's just getting people to the table because there's been turnover and you don't know who that is. Not that that's not a priority, because we have to have that in state funded, but I think that's tough to do from a state level, to say you have to do this in your county to make your partnership work, and you have to do this, and it just doesn't work. Because we never want to put anybody in a box and then they can't, it's just not working for them. But again, I think, and hopefully since we've been meeting and we've had those conversations about first steps, hopefully that those, if that has been a concern of yours, that things are getting better, or, and I see some head nods. So hopefully that's the case, because really it is that conversation piece with that agency, with first steps, and then just moving forward from there, what's best for your county. And then really teacher frustration to reduce the teacher turnover. Again, I think that absolutely that is something that we all know is a valid point. I think, though, that's tough for us to tackle as a state priority. I just think that, again, we can offer suggestions. We can talk about that as a group, because absolutely I think that this is, I'm not a support group, because I'm not my support group, but I do think it is. I think that we hear what's going across the state, what we hear from others in our county about what's happening with them, and then what can we do to that, and maybe how to approach your superintendent, how to approach your board of education. But I do think those are local things that have to be discussed. But I think as a collective whole, that's something that we all feel. And we all know is happening, and working collectively, to to make that better. Absolutely, for our teachers.
And this group does a very good job of leveraging the RTCs.
Yeah.
Because when you think about statewide scale and your communication and how to get the word out and consistency and coordination, I just encourage you to continue to use those opportunities within the RTC to do that, because it's hard to communicate with everyone. But the RTC, if you build that relationship locally, and I know people are coming and going, new people in and out, but if the consistency can be those RTCs, it really is your arm to get the information out. So you all always do a good job with that.
And as you mentioned that, I was going to mention this later, but I do think that we have to have a systematic way, because I think, I know the relationship I have with my RTC, and I'm sure but we're all communicating with them. But I think as a systematic way of making sure that we're getting feedback from everybody in our respective counties in the RTC that funnels through, that they know that we're getting that, so we can bring it here, because we are the voices for our counties. And so absolutely, I think that that's just another layer or another tier of that support, that have some systems in place that we're ensuring that if people have feedback to get us about, their frustration, like anything that we can bring here, that we're able to have a consistent way. Because to be honest, if you know your coordinator really well, you're getting and not that people don't, but people change and there's things, and if there's not a system in place, it shouldn't be not your relationship, it should be the system that's pulling the information to this group.
I know in our RTC, they have us on the agenda every month. And the last time we had a meeting, Jennifer and I'm like, do you know anybody here? They were all new. And I was like, it's like, where did everybody go? So it's nice and we asked, what do you want us to take back? And one of them was the COS deadline of December 1st, and that's what we brought back. But, my concern with going back just to, the teacher frustration and the caseload size, I'm seeing more and more that our preschool program is becoming more of a special ed preschool. And my superintendent and I have a really good working relationship, and I understand and appreciate that he knows 20 kids need to be in that classroom, and if there's only 15, you're losing funding for 5 because you don't have that classroom full. But when I have 12 enrolled in a class and 7 of them are grade, 3 autistic, 1 nonverbal, 1 non-ambulatory, that 12 is going to be hard on 2 kids, on two adults in that class. So, we're kind of, I need somebody else in this classroom, and that's hard. Last year we struggled, but this year it's really going to be a struggle. So
In our district, I just had the conversation towards the end of the school year in spring about the district decided to increase the pay for those assistants in HSC classrooms or FMD classrooms, those probably, those more significant, those people that are working with more significant kids. And I said, what about preschool? Because that's what we're doing. Where do you think those kids came from? And so I think that is something that's super important for us to be advocating for, is that preschool is where those children start out most often. First steps to us, sometimes missing first steps to us. And we've talked about the COVID kids. This past year, more than ever, we saw lots of kids that were born during COVID and have no social skills, they kind of are street smart, meaning that they can kind of fend for themselves, but they didn't have the experiences with other kids that normally you would have had at this point. And that's creating behaviors that are really difficult when they get into a group of children and they don't know how to interact. And like you said, you have 12 kids and more than half of them have IEPs. So I feel like that's a really important thing for us to be looking at the state level, as directors or whatever, because we have to advocate to our superintendents. They don't always see what's happening in those classrooms. And that is why, I mean, we had a discussion on the way here that I have 3 children with feeding tubes in our program, and my teachers are hooking those up. You know, and they're not nurses, or CNAs, or, so they're, more and more we're seeing teachers are doing way more than what it started out to be as a teacher, our preschool teachers are.
And I think as you share that, absolutely, because those are the advocacy pieces that, because we know the nature of the program of the children that we serve, and what the pandemic has presented for an increase of students with disabilities, or coming with skills that were maybe there 10 years ago that aren't there, because we have to serve them. We have to do that. So like you said, the advocacy of talking to your superintendent, being in their ear, or to the board and presenting that, because some of that would come right now from the district level of what that support looks like and what that is. But I think the conversation, we never want to let those conversations die down, because we advocate for our teachers, we advocate for our staff, and we advocate for our children. And that's why we sit where we sit. And I think, yes, we always want to continue to have those conversations, because I think what you all said, and I wouldn't ask for a show of hands, but I have an assumption that we all feel those and are dealing with those, in our counties. And like for us, we've come up with some solutions in Fayette County that may not, work in your county, but those continually, advocacy going, hearing back from teachers. And again, I want us to be that voice to empower our other coordinators in their counties to have those conversations, because we're all supporting each other in that, and we're supporting our children and our staff.
So I have a question around, because, advocacy is with preschool, that's just something that we do, right? Like advocacy is extremely important within our work. But within your districts, how are you all advocating? Like, do you have direct access to your superintendents, I know not probably to the board, but do you have that direct access, or like how does that advocacy look?
Every Monday morning in Harrison County, our superintendent has a central office COLT team, central office leadership team, and we sit around the table like this. Everybody that's in charge of a program gets to address what they're working on and what their needs are.
I said COLT.
We have, open, ours is really
No,
open.
not a fault.
We have open door. Our finance director and I are very close. We started here together, so we're close friends and close, and professionally. We have a very low tax base here. We don't have the money. There is not the money is not available to give raises. And now we're competing with Fayette County. The districts that border Fayette County are competing with Fayette County, and it's getting pretty rough here to find somebody that will do the jobs that we need done for the amount that we can pay. And it's just not here. We're a bedroom community. Most of our people work in a different county. We have one factory here. We have 73% free lunch. It's not equal what our kids can get compared to counties with bigger tax bases, because they're getting the very best teachers and cream of the crop. I'm Debbie Downer, sorry.
I was going to say, well, in Fayette County, this is what we do.
Fayette County, yeah.
For us is direct access to the superintendent. So I have a supervisor that is direct report to the superintendent, and I meet with her regularly and share the concerns. I meet with our budget and staffing person very regularly, and I share all of these concerns with whomever I'm meeting with. If it's our operations director, if it's our budget and finance, and then I encourage all of them to go out and visit a preschool classroom. I'm like, when you want to go out, let's go out, to see. And some have taken me up on that. Some are like, no, I'm very familiar. I get it. I know that you wouldn't be, bringing this up or asking if it wasn't a true need. And then I do share that at the end of our your staff meeting in May, I mean, I share with the whole staff those pieces of the meetings that I have and the conversations that I have. Because I want them to be, be fully transparent with them that I do take what I hear, the concerns, and those to, the powers that be that I have direct contact with in the district.
We're very similar. I have access to superintendent. I go through assistant superintendent, and she meets in cabinet, and we meet together every other week. She
Our
takes our words up there.
superintendent wants to give everybody money too. I mean, he wants to, that's our biggest thing is we need to increase pay. And we, like I said, we're so open, we talk just, it's pretty, we're pretty casual here in some ways that I could just walk in his office at any time and the finance director. But, yeah, I think we all want it. And I mean, the advocating part, he's as big a supporter of early childhood as anywhere. It's just our money's not there for giving raises like we need to get the best people and the best job in the jobs.
Yeah, so that's really good to hear. And Ms. Lewis, I see your hand. But that's really good to hear is that in regards to the structure, if you all aren't directly reporting to the superintendent, you're reporting to someone who has senior leadership that has access to the superintendent. So I think that's extremely important in regards to looking at the advocacy and how that looks. Ms. Lewis?
Yes, so I won't keep this part of the conversation going, but I wanted to share same sentiments. My direct supervisor talks to the superintendent. I do have the opportunity to present at each board meeting, but I think it's also important to teach our staff how to advocate and to teach our families how to advocate, because they're truly the best advocates out there to share the story of preschool and how important it is. So we take that really as a strong piece when we're doing our parent committee meetings and our PTO meetings, making sure our parents are the advocates as well, because out in the community, they're the best ones, and the good, the bad, and the ugly, they're the ones that are sharing that. So we want that advocacy to be strong, but letting our teachers advocate also is a very strong point to continue.
Yeah, that's great, Ms. Lewis, because I agree. You have to kind of teach how to advocate in the seat that you're sitting in. And I think that's extremely important. So thank you for sharing that.
And I always say for us in Fayette County that we've been lucky to have the several last superintendents that have had that see the importance of early childhood. Probably, I don't know, 8 years ago that they brought this role that I'm in as preschool coordinator to the table with other executive leadership. And that I feel like was a good turning point for the district, because when conversations are happening, even though that not necessarily that pertain to preschool, or if they do, they see the face of preschool at the table. That we're a continuum of learning from pre-K through 12th grade. And that was just a really big shift for I think a lot of leadership, the ones that are still there now, to see the importance. And again, just seeing the face of early childhood around the table has been a powerful thing.
I think that differs across the state, being out with consolidated monitoring, seeing lots of different organizations. I think is, you have some that, like teams in this group, are very connected and very much seats at tables, and then you have others, you walk in and you're not sure the superintendent's ever met the preschool coordinator. So it's sometimes it's really tough for people to get that advocacy going, but I think this group can always raise that up and push their peers to show them how, give them ideas from this group in your regions.
I always laugh because I'll hear people, here comes Whitney again. I've made my point. I'll take that every day, because you know what I'm going to say, drilling at home, and I don't know. I'm going to say it to my face. I don't care. So accept that. You're right. I'll accept that every time. But thank you for this discussion as we talk about like looking at those and look at advocacy, that rolls into like what are some concrete priorities, like if you wanted to come out. And again, I don't want to say a product. That's not what but something concrete. And as we've had this discussion, just to, today about the quality control that's coming, or the quality, the tool that's coming. And I feel like, is that something that we can look at once we know what that is? Like that we walk hand in hand with KDE at putting that system in place about what it looks like for counties. Again, it doesn't matter if you're in my county or your county, this is the system that's going to be used. This is the tool. This is what it's going to look like. And I think because there will be a product for the end of that. And again, that would be fluid if something's not working or years down the road it needs to be changed. But I do feel like as voices for across the state, that is something that we could have a powerful, like you were mentioning, well, we're already using these tools. What does that look like? Having plans in place for districts to have those conversations with KDE when they come, or they have that there's a structure there, that there's a narrative already there that we've had input in. And then also it's something that we would take back to our RTCs and get collective feedback, but really being able to help map that out and have that piece. I think the other is the COS system. We came through the first year, we made it. As Andrea was sharing, there would be updates. So looking at what is that, after we go through this year with changes, again, being able to set, this is the process. We've heard feedback, we've tried this, but coming out of this group, we've had conversations, and this is the system that we've helped support KDE in creating as a collective whole, as a collective voice. Does that make sense, as seeing the difference in the advocacy? Because those other things are vital for what we do in our program. And these other pieces are vital for the processes that we have in our program to ensure things like quality, to ensure that if a family goes from me to you, there's consistency across the programming that they're getting in our state. And then I don't know if there, is anything else, but those coming out of this conversation, I don't know if anybody has heard anything else today or thinking about a priority, but I think those are things that we can take with us today and then bring those back at our next meeting to really think. I've thought through the priorities. Yes, I'm thinking about a system or a product. I do think that us being a vital player in carving up the COS system, and then the quality control being part of that and what that looks like. And then we can have, discussions about anything else. I mean, does that sound like a good plan to do? But again, not losing sight of those advocacy pieces, but really and truly what it is that we can come, like when our tenure is over, we can say, hey, we were part of getting that system as a whole across the state. All right.
Christy?
Whitney, I think you put that into great verbiage there. And, one of the discussions we've previously had is the importance of making sure we stay focused on developmentally appropriate practice, and high quality environments is key to that. And bringing on so many new staff across the state, I think I'm very proud to see that may be one of our priorities, because we have to stick to those roots of developmentally appropriate practice and what true early childhood looks like across our state. And so thank you for leading us. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Christy. And again, I want feedback. I want, if, right, wrong, or indifferent, whether, you think we should go this way. But I feel like we're at a point that as we've regrouped, it's been a little bit, we come back, we have new faces at the table, and to be able to take that step and knowing when we come back in October, we'll have that discussion, and then boom, those would be our priorities. And we're just charging ahead with those and what that looks like. That works. Pretty good. Okay, perfect. So the next thing, speaking of that, coming back together, is a discussion about future meeting dates. And so based on what we've done, our next meeting would be the end of October. Does that, meeting, was it 4 times a year, I guess, that we meet? Is that still quarterly? For me, I think when our meeting in October, when we look at the priorities, I think that maybe is when we can really set, do we need to meet more often? Because if we're going to hit the ground running and see, where KDE, where you guys are at in October and what information that you're bringing, that I think really sets the tone for what the pace will be for the rest of the year, and getting that work done. Does that work for everybody to just set an October date and then revisit that and get those based on the work that we have to do for the rest of the year? So looking at that, the end of October.
Also, we'll be here with.
They'll be here November 5th through 9th.
Do you want us to have one on November 5th? Is that-
If we do plan to do what we've been doing, which is like the last Thursday of the month, typically we pushed it back this week because of OSEP leadership next week. That is the week of the NAD, the National Association of State Director Special Education Conference, so several of us, including myself, will be out for that. Which is
Look at the week before that, maybe.
That'd be the 19th.
yeah, the 19th.
Does the 19th work? I mean, is everybody good?
Go back to that after we had that meeting, you said we would reset that.
Yeah. So October 19th, from 10 to 12. That work?
And you can meet more often, whatever you need. It's just most groups start with a quarterly schedule. And then if there are special called meetings in between, feel free to do that.
That's SAPEC Day.
Yeah, always October 19th is the
SAPEC, yeah.
SAPEC day.
We can do something like that.
So maybe try the Thursday before.
October 12th.
Well, is that fall breaks though?
Yes.
All right.
Well. So, you want to do a different day of the week?
26, or is that too close to the November?
The 27th.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
You're too busy typing. You're doing this.
It's not a week.
I know.
I'm gonna.
I'll say the 18th.
Or Tuesday, the 17th.
The 17th or 18th? Either of those days?
Actually, hold on, let me see. Wednesday's better for me, but I can make the 17th work, I think.
I think you said you could do the 18th is better for you. Is that what you said?
It is better for me, but if that's hard for everybody else, I'll do my best to make the 17th.
That'd be too much for you.
Same day.
Yeah, so you'd rather do a different, do Tuesday instead of Wednesday?
Tuesday's better.
Trying to give a day in between.
Yeah.
It's tough to prepare for that. So
Yes, I don't know if you all know. Can I answer? Do you want to?
Oh, I can if you want.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is my last advisory group meeting. That's why I was on my face.
And the frown is on mine.
And mine too.
And so one thing I want to say is just thank you for the opportunity to allow me to serve as your facilitator, try to do the best I can. And so I gave the same spiel at SAPEC. And so I've really enjoyed it. It was a job duty that Greta gave me. And so I've really enjoyed it, getting to know you all. But Misty Green, I want to introduce you to Misty. She's been shadowing me the past couple of months, and we've been talking about job duties to make a transition. So Misty will be the facilitator of the group. So that's why we're trying to coordinate with Misty to say, will that be easy to do? And it's a job facilitating the groups in the calendar. So, but
This is the best
appreciate
trip.
you. Yeah, this is.
When I was gonna say that at the end, I was gonna say, Joe, we appreciate all you've
Yeah,
done.
I enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I miss you all, but you're in good hands with Misty, so.
Yeah.
And this is a great group.
Yeah, so October 17th from 10 to 12. For those online, a thumbs up or a head nod too. Is that decent head nods around the table? Is that good for everybody? All right, October 17th. And so here, we'll plan on here I assume we're virtual if there's things could be it would be the same kind of hybrid model. Okay, perfect.
Encouraging people to be on site, but if they can't, we understand.
Yes. All right.
Things happen.
So our next thing on the agenda is just open discussion. And when Andrea and I had met, we were just talking a little bit about just some things again, those that come up as program coordinators, this would just be a good time to come up. We have, KDE at the table to get some feedback. And just some of the things that we were talking about that possibly like just gonna get an idea of an open discussion would be, beginning of school year things. Is there anything pressing that you're thinking about that we need to talk about? And I think Andrea was going to give just a quick update just as reminders for us, but is there anything pressing that you might be thinking of? The full utilizations, just a reminder of those being due in September. And then we just talked about the funding. We know our allocations came out for pupil amount, that if anybody had any pressing question about that this would be a good time, just in an open discussion format, just to ask if anybody has any questions about that. Is there anything?
I want to say, I'd love to see that funding amount. As we were talking earlier with the disparity of the disabilities that we got in the range, I am having to put 3 adults in there. But between that and having to pay for bus drivers, which I really do not even have, it is rough making that budget work.
Very much is. We see some creative things in GMAP trying to stretch a dollar. I'm telling you, I'm in the budget. It's all right. We all have to do it. We appreciate that.
I told my family last night if I won the lottery, I was funding state-funded preschool at a higher rate for the state. Like that was going to be somewhere about that ego. So anyway, but because I think we're all in agreement, definitely with that as well.
Full utilization, if you can take this back to your next, I believe August is probably the next RTC meetings that you guys will have with your coordinator groups. Just remember and maybe remind your peers they're due September 15th and they need to be uploaded into the SharePoint site. Of course, I'll send you all the reminders, but if you guys can put that out there too, that would be great. They're no longer needed to be attached or uploaded to GMAP. They just need to go into that SharePoint site, the preschool coordinator SharePoint site. And if you could, in the next August meeting with your coordinator groups, try and get a feel for how many new folks are in your space. We have our RTCs kind of digging in that too. But it's nice for us to know kind of, all right, so I really need to focus on Anderson's RTC because everybody's new at the table, but Callaway RTC, maybe just a few. And that's something that helps us out because we don't always know. Sometimes we're the last people to know that someone new has joined as a coordinator. And that September 15th due date comes very quickly, especially if you're new and it's got hired and you have no idea what's going on. I appreciate you guys sharing that.
I see updates. I'm not sure if they're aware of with the new HIVI eligibility forms being in Infinite Campus now. I don't know. We were thinking that was going to take several months, but that is in there now. And then, of course, you're probably aware that Amy Patterson's been providing some training on that new look of the IC elements with the special education part. So, sure everybody's yeah.
And Amy's a great resource.
Yeah, she's doing one tomorrow. If anybody needs.
I'll provide a few updates in regards to the early learning ARP work. And so we are moving forward. Very happy to hear that we are moving forward with state pyramid team. So very excited about that. So we should have additional information and hopefully we'll have someone possibly in our next meeting in October to maybe provide an update around what's going on with that work. Also letters, so early childhood letters is on the rise. So be on the lookout for that information, and your teachers or yourself can participate in those trainings. And also teacher leader community is really great. It's led by Jennifer Hagan. It was a really great initiative. I had the opportunity to attend the summer event. It was amazing. It was amazing to see teachers, and they also had an opportunity to bring their administrator to that event, which is extremely important because the administrator is responsible for the oversight of those programs. So it was very good to see the teacher and their administrator side by side in that meeting to talk around preschool and how it looks in Kentucky. So just be on the lookout for additional information around the teacher leader community, the state pyramid, and also early childhood letters.
And I know Greta likes to pass along positive news and information. Our office, as a state, we did receive a meets on our determinations, which is like the 14th year in a row, which is very impressive and good for us. So, so you pass that along. And then we did get, I think it was like a little bit over $5 million state personnel development grant, SPDIG grant, which is also exciting because that will continue some of the ARP work that we're doing, which all of that work is so exciting and so good. So it's nice to know that there's some funds available to help continue some of that.
Absolutely. And as you're speaking of that, around the, this is we're going into the last year of ARP budget. So as an office, as an early learning unit, we're looking at how to sustain all the great work that's been happening within the ARP land. And so just be on the lookout for additional information. We may need your support and guidance in regards to how that looks. But we're really looking at that as an office and as an early learning unit is how do we sustain all the great work that's happening within the ARP world.
That's gonna win the lottery.
Oh, that's right. We think around 15 million. That's it. Yeah, that's not it. You write a check and.
I got it.
Go from there.
The teacher leader cadre was really nice. I got to pop in for a little bit and sit with the admins and great questions, great conversation. And the teachers were so excited to get those materials. I don't know if you guys saw the materials I got. It was a ton of stuff. So really, really awesome things happening there. I would love to see that to continue.
Me too.
It's nice just to be together because a lot of times we're thrown into these professional developments or even in these conferences and there's very few preschool tracks or very few preschool people and they're together with it and they can say something and like, oh yeah, I know what that is, or I had a kid do that yesterday. That kind of stuff is really nice in the preschool teacher.
And how amazing is that? And it feels more like a POC. How amazing is it that? And I think I asked the question when I was there, is that where was this when I was teaching? It's that you're not just talking to those in your district, you're talking to other practitioners who are facing the same probably challenges that you're facing, and you're sharing practices to better your practice and possibly someone else's that holds the same seat that you do, just in another district or county. So it was great.
And you're in the sweet spot when that happens, because this group feels a lot like that.
Yeah.
Conversation and the information shared. So it's meaningful. So I appreciate you all.
So there's Tammy Rutherford. She's a new branch member for us, and Veronica Brown is online. She's another new staff member for our branch. Tammy will be working with the Ashland region, which I think you're both online today, Kim and Ashland. And then Veronica will be working with the Simpson region. Veronica Brown will be. They're both straight out of the classroom, real life experience, been teachers for years and years. So I'm excited to have them join the team. I'm excited to be here. We have a full team.
One last update, apologies, but we do have an opening for an All-Stars coordinator. So that has been posted, and hopefully it'll post throughout next week. But we are looking for an All-Stars coordinator to help lead their work throughout the state.
Exciting things are happening.
Yeah. So one of the things that Andrea and I had talked about as well, and we had mentioned a little bit earlier, is how to take this information back to our RTC, like that consistent message. And so just in the open discussion, I've been like jotting down the things that we talked about. And I don't know, Andrea, if it's something that we can drop into our Google, like just a sheet, because I think it's important that we're all sharing the same updates across the, I mean, again, you share whatever, but I think those bulleted points, so I had just written down like the DMS 2.0, just I think giving the definition of that. And again, we can pull information from the notes to say the blurb of when it's coming and what that looks like. I mean, just again, for them to hear that, to begin to hear that, like this, where to find the COS resources that they're available. And then the full utilization date that Andrea had mentioned, how many new people there are. And I think when we do that, I think though we have to, like, how do we get that number back to you all? Or like, what does that look like that you all want us to do? And providing that information, you know, if you do a head count while you're on, you know, and write it down, or somebody or your RTC person emails you the number, but then how we get that, you know, to KDE. And then we had, I think, the feedback from counties that we want feedback from everybody and the system, you know, of that. And I think that's something that we may just kind of have to flesh out here in a few minutes. Like if like feedback from other coordinators in the county through the RTC, I mean, I've told people they can email me directly. I've had people email directly, or if they want to email the RTC and forward it on, but then that would be sent on to them. I mean, is something like that okay as far as feedback? Are you good? Like if somebody wants to email you directly or the RTC and they forward it on. I think it's important to mention the state pyramid team. There's a state pyramid team getting created. Because again, I think these are things that, especially that people might start hearing, and we don't want assumptions out there that something's been and they've missed some information, but it's being created. So more information is to come on that. And then I don't know if everybody would feel comfortable just to have that conversation about that we're looking at priorities to bring back, and that we had a conversation about the difference between advocacy and priority, that we're always going to be the voice, but looking at a priority of having a concrete, you know, a product coming out of that, working with KDE. And then our October date, that this is the date that we would be meeting. So, I mean, if there's something that I missed or something that we feel, but I think just having that consistency that we know this is what we're all going to share this across the state is a really good step for us in this group. Just pulling us all together as a collective team.
We can create a communications type folder in our Google Drive. Everyone has access to that, correct? We can create something like that and kind of drop this information in, and you guys can pull it out. Tweak it for your region, whatever your region's needs are.
And I will say, like, if I'm notorious for this, like writing this down, and the day of the meeting, I'm like, what about you? Like, because I'm just thinking like it's bullets. Like, if it's a bullet, if you do that, I may reach out to one of y'all and go, hey, what were we talking about? Like, you know, you got 10,000 things on your mind right now with school starting. So that's what I think, us using each other as support in that, leaning on, I know we had this conversation, but exactly what did this bullet mean? That I think we use each other as that support team, while our counties, you know, the other coordinators in our regions also use us as that support to get information around this table. So, all right.
I'll put a link to the exit slip in the chat, and then also email everyone.
Perfect. That was the next thing on our agenda. And then the closing remarks from Andrea.
Thank you all so much for coming and taking the time to be with us today. I like where directions here. I like the direction that we're heading out. So be safe on your travels, and friends in Western Kentucky, flooding is impacting. I know it's impacting Kristen. It's impacting the rest of you all. So that's definitely keeping you in our hearts and our minds for sure. But yeah, thanks so much, and happy new school year. Right? It's coming.
So I have to adjourn our meeting, but before we do, I had written Joe's retirement on here before y'all. Sorry about that. Just to say thank you. And what you all, as the chair and the co-chair, Joe provides us like notes that are just, that make it so much easier to know the process and what's going on, to try to remember all of that and then to be part of the conversation. The first was really hard because I'm, oh my gosh, what's next? So it's been a lifesaver. So for me personally, Joe, I thank you. Thought we should get him a little gift, and I'm like, is that legal? Like, well, they would be like, no, you can't take that gift card from Starbucks.
It's the thought that counts.
Yes. But
She's gonna write you a check when she leaves.
I do, and something shows up, you know, I want water.
That's a retirement gift.
Absolutely. But thank you. We'll be missed, but we look forward to, you know, to our new.
Working with
Yes.
Misty, yeah,
Yes. I want to say Miss Green because you have on a green sweater, and I knew that was. Yes, Miss Green there. So we appreciate that. But so I will ask for a motion to adjourn our meeting, our preschool coordinator and advisory group meeting. Motion to adjourn. All right. Can I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Right, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Appreciate your time.
Have a great day.